Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJ Brick Podcast. Today we have episode 239. We have an awesome show today. Our special guest this week is Chris Martin. Chris is a jiu-jitsu artist who had kind of an unfortunate accident training, and we're going to talk about that along with some other stuff. But as always, I'm here with my partners in crime, Joe Thomas, Byron Jabara. How are you guys doing today?
Gary, we're doing great. Excited to be on the show again this week. And yes, Chris has a important story to hear and just to educate the audience of something that could happen. Not real likely, but definitely a thing you want to know to help protect yourself and your teammates and really people off the mat, you're around, your family, co-workers, everybody. A lot to learn this episode, and it could save your life. It could save people you care about's life. So I don't know how to say stay tuned other than that. I mean, you can't miss this.
Gary, Byron, yeah, I'm doing good too. Glad to be on the show this week. Looking forward to it. It's a lot of fun and games on the BJJ Brick Podcast, but this week we have a serious issue to discuss during the interview. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, guys, I have a off the mat lesson. I'd like to talk about off the mat and drag it over to the mat and tap it out and discuss it jiu-jitsu wise. I'm building some benches with some, reclaimed wood. Just kind of some stuff my dad had laying around, and he wasn't going to use it for anything, and he wanted somebody to do something with it. So I decided, hey, I'll make some benches and I'll give them to my siblings. And the thing is, I'm not that good at making things like this. I'm okay. So I'm out there and I'm working on them, and I've actually produced one, and now I'm producing several more kind of at the same time. But you get done with a bench with four legs, and you know what is going to happen? It's going to wobble a little bit because there's four legs, and they're not all perfect, and the wood is 15 years old, and the guy cutting it isn't the most skilled person. So what do? You go to the hardware store and you buy little feet that are adjustable. They screw in and out, and you could balance this thing perfectly, and it won't wobble anymore. And I was really happy that exists, because I didn't want to make a bunch of wobbly benches to give to people. But I was thinking about this, dragging it back on the mat. The idea of having something that you could adjust, like I could have made those benches off by like a full inch. It would be kind of awkward, but you could adjust that foot the full inch and it would be stable. I think there are parts in our game that allow you to kind of adjust everything, get it right where you want it, and then proceed. I think of a triangle sometimes, and you get it set up, and some triangles, yeah, you got their head and their arm isolated, but it's just they're fighting very well, and you don't have that adjustment quite yet kind of centered in. And it's like, man, I have it. They're not tapping. I can't quite get the angle quite right or whatever. And then you think of side control maybe, and you're working something, and you have the time to really manipulate the person on the bottom and get them their arms right where you want it, or their chin right where you want it, and really kind of go to that central point, adjust some things, and then proceed. And I think that making those little adjustments at the bottom of a bench, or at side control from a place that you're very familiar with. It could even be within the triangle itself. Not trying to finish the triangle, go back, fix some things, and then go back to finish it. Are kind of things you do as you develop your game, and you have certain techniques that are good for you, but you can't just slap them on and finish. You just need to put them on, and then have a period of adjustment, and then apply the finish. And I went with like a nice smooth, oak-looking fish. No, I don't know. I think that's something that I was working on, and I just thought, yeah, you need something. Some parts of techniques are adjustable to help you get them to where you need them to be, and that could be pulling on your foot in that triangle situation, or I guess it's always better to pull on your shin versus your foot.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Byron, on the triangle, and you were talking about it. Started out at the triangle. And it just made me start thinking about my game. And what happens in a lot of triangles is I get the legs locked up, I get the arm in, but I'm not in position to finish. I always have to break the posture. I always have to control the head. And a lot of times I will have to reach up with my other hand and pull on the shin, to make it a little bit tighter. And normally that's what I need, but I never do get it right off the bat unless a guy just gets hit by a tranquilizer and just falls right into my legs. But it's normally I set it up, I get the position, and then I have to make some adjustments to finish it. So, I like your lesson. I think it portrays perfectly to jiu-jitsu and woodworking.
Hey, just a little heads up. We've been having a little technical difficulties. We have Joe. He's been kind of hit and miss the past couple minutes, but now we have him on a phone, so he's here. Sounds a little different than usual, but we got him back. Joe is back.
Yeah, it's good to be back, guys. I don't know what's going on with the internet connection here in Texas, but it's a little bit hinky tonight.
Well, we could use that as an off-the-mat lesson. It's we run into a little bit of issues. We have some internet connections, but we find a way around it. Same thing. We're on the mat. We're running into some trouble. My leg starts cramping. My whatever happens, but you find a way around it. You just keep plugging away. At jiu-jitsu, it's a sport where we don't quit. We keep plugging away. We'll find a way around that mountain, and that's what we did here.
Yeah, you go for the hip bump sweep, and they're too well based out, and you can't get it, and you go for the Kimura. If that doesn't work, you switch to the guillotine. I mean, you just keep going until you get what you're after, right? You need to finish, and you keep working until you get it.
So true, Joe. So true.
Yep. And the problem is when we're new at jiu-jitsu, we don't really know what we should be working for. And I created a little audiobook just to help you out with that sort of problem. And the money goes and helps support the show. It's about 2.5 hours long. It's me talking to you about your first year of training. And basically, I'm going to walk you through things like finding the right gym, what to do in your first month. And chapter 4 is one of the bigger ones. It's talking about different positions and how they work, and a few techniques that you need to be focusing on. So many times, you get to class and everyone's doing techniques that you can't really even understand or that aren't for beginners. That's okay. They need to work on those techniques too, but you're going to see parts of those positions that still apply to you, and it really help you stay focused and working on your game as far as developing your first year on the mats and kind of avoid some of the missteps that we could all take going down something that maybe not right for us yet. And that's the goal of that chapter. And I think it's a lot of help getting somebody to not just to just train and do jiu-jitsu for that first year, but to really work on the right things. I think it does cut down a lot on frustration. So check it out. It's $11.99. There'll be a link in the show notes. It's about 2.5 hours long, and I'd like to hear what you think about it.
And if you're not in your first year of BJJ, feel free to buy it for somebody that is. It'd make a great gift, maybe a welcome item for a new guy in your gym.
There you go. That is a good idea. If you bring a friend and you get them on the mat and they've been going for a little while and you introduce them to the podcast, and then let me hook you up with this audiobook. Boom, bang. Great success right around the corner.
You'll have a friend for life.
Yeah, I don't know how to say something smart. I'll keep it. I didn't have anything on that one, Gary.
Well, we know most of the stuff you say is not very smart. But, there are a lot of people who do say stuff smartly, I guess, if that's even a word. And one of those guys is
nicely proved right there, Gary.
One of those guys is Dwight D. Eisenhower. And what Dwight said, our real problem then is not our strength today. It is rather the vital necessity of action today to ensure our strength tomorrow. We definitely want to have strength tomorrow. Wouldn't you guys say so?
Oh, absolutely, Gary. When I think about that quote and I think about jiu-jitsu, I don't necessarily think about physical strength, but I think about, strengthening your game and having a complete game that's effective. And it's true that you can get overly concerned with winning the match today and, and not be, and so you just go to your A game or just the one or two things you're good at. And that's okay for today. Maybe you won a match, maybe you did good in class, but ultimately you got to practice what you're not good at. You got to spend time on things like stretching and doing cardio and maybe doing some studying. There's all kinds of things you got to do that aren't as fun as just coming to open mat and rolling. but they're just as important, maybe more important, because we're not worried about just being good today. We're worried about being better tomorrow and the next year and the year after that.
You know, Joe, that's a great point, and it makes me think of something we got coming on a little bit later on in the show, our article of the week about positional sparring. And, you know, I'll just touch on it real quick now, and we'll talk about it later. But, you know, positional sparring, you know, I think is one thing that takes you out of your comfort zone, and it's going to, you know, it's going to ensure our strength tomorrow. We're going to work on stuff that may not be our best, and we're going to focus on that to add a new tool to our tool basket, as Joe likes to say.
Basket, box, bag. Whatever you put your tools in, you're going to have more tools to put there.
Byron, when you were making your benches, did you have a basket or a box or a sheath?
A sheath, yes. I keep them all in a sheath. That way they're ready to go at the moment's notice that needs to be cut.
Yeah.
No, that's an interesting way to look at this quote. Another way is that working today on the mats will make you a stronger person tomorrow, and you could also physically, mentally, several different categories. But just the idea that you're taking care of that older person that is you by doing something that's physically active. As I say this, I'm reminded. Just the other day, I was watching people grapple. It's rough. It's all too easy for me to forget how rough it can be to be new at jiu-jitsu. And watching two white belts spar and try to murder each other. Like, man, those guys, I know they're going to go home sore. That's part of your first little while is a little more rough. You know, you need to really pick the people you train with very well and train safely in order to maintain your health, especially in those early times. Compared to the way I roll now, if somebody wants to roll rough with me, usually they're fairly new, and I don't have a real difficult time not letting that happen. If somebody's really good and they want to, you know, bang me up and injure me and do damage, I feel just fine saying no, thank you, and you know, you've worn out your training partner. That is me. Just because I don't want to do that. I don't want to get hurt and miss work and that sort of thing. But just you should be putting like money in the bank for a better health tomorrow with jiu-jitsu. But it's easy to forget that, and it's easy to say, now my ankle's busted. Okay, now my knee's busted, and then you're just accumulating injuries. That's not a smart way to train long term.
Yep, like you said, Byron, put money in the bank. A penny saved is a penny earned. Another way I was thinking about this, you know, we talk about vital necessity of action today to ensure our strength tomorrow. You know, Joe's, you know, you got your way of talking about it, which I thought was awesome. I never even thought about that right off the bat, but that's my favorite one, Byron, your way. You know, when I first, no, I'm not trashing you, Byron, or anything.
No, that's funny, is that?
But, you know, the first thing I was thinking of is, you know, like healthy eating, sleep.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, maybe because I'm older and I'm that guy who gets beat up all the time. But I notice it's funny today because I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I rolled this morning, and I was telling my training partner, you know, right before we started rolling, that I went into the locker room there. And as I was walking back out to get on the mat, they have a full-length mirror, and I'm just looking at myself, and it's like I got bags under my eyes. I look like I just woke up. And I'm looking at myself, and I was like, man, I look like I'm like 70 years old. I looked horrible. And I didn't get a good night's sleep, and I didn't eat properly the night before. So, you know, eating, sleeping, stretching, you know, just things to take care of our body to make us stronger tomorrow.
I like that way, Gary.
That's really good. That's really good. Gary, so you talk about going in and looking old and tired. Do you ever finish a roll and have a young guy say, "Are you okay, sir?" That's how you know. That's how you know you've reached the designation of older grappler.
Yeah, as soon as we hear "sir," yep.
I say, "Yeah, I'm okay." I always lay on the mat for a few minutes after a roll.
That's great. You know, Joe, we should write a book on stuff that us older grapplers have to deal with.
I have a feeling at the end of the show we might.
Yeah, but the bad thing is we'll probably forget about it by the time it comes around. As we get older, we forget about stuff.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's one of the problems.
What am I doing here again?
Gary, hang tight, my friend. We'll come back at the back part of the show. Right now, we'll air our interview with Chris Martin.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He reached the top of Everest by sweeping it and taking Mount. This is also how the Mount position got its name. He had to drop his sponsorship with Beats headphones because they would not fit over his cauliflower ears. Their stock dropped 30% that day. He wore his unwashed gi to a blind date. You're damn right he got a second date.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends. I'm happy to bring Chris Martin back to the BJJ Brick podcast. When Chris was on the show, it was back in late 2015. He was working with BJJ4Change. He's still working with that, but a lot has happened between now and then with Chris, and he's got got kind of a crazy journey he's gone through, and he wants to share that. And I'm happy to have him here, and it's definitely not just the BJJ4Change. You also come with a safety message. Chris, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Byron, how are you? Thank you.
I'm doing good. Having a good time here, and thrilled to get you back on. And I think this will be a valuable lesson for people to take away something. And this could be something that could affect you personally as you're listening, or possibly a teammate. But just being aware of what you're talking about today.
Your students. It could be your students. It could be your kids. It could be anybody. It could be non-jiu-jitsu related as well. So
Chris, you had what we're talking about here. You had a stroke on the mats.
Yep.
Tell me that story.
Okay, so let's cut right to the chase, obviously, because it happened in August of 2017. Here we are, you and I are having this conversation about April, and so it's about 8 months later. So I'm going to give you the long and the short of it, and I have articles written. I've just started to publish some articles on Medium and other publications to discuss what happened, because it happened so fast. And then anytime an accident happens like this, you don't think about any of this stuff up until the accident, obviously. And then afterwards, it's just like trying to piece things together and like put it all together to figure out exactly what happened, following up with doctors. So I've been documenting this whole journey because I'm not the only one that something like this has happened to. So let me give you the short version of the story. Most practitioners are probably not aware of it, but we have the potential risk of dissecting our carotid arteries, which a simple way to term that would be having our arteries potentially form a tear. So, Byron, let me ask you the question. Just stepping it back, now that I said that, your carotid arteries can tear, would you see jiu-jitsu as a sport that the carotid arteries are under a lot of pressure at times?
Yeah, definitely at times. Your neck's under pressure. It's getting just the simple fact alone, as occasionally you come home and you have these gi marks on your neck from sometimes a well-placed choke, sometimes a poorly placed choke, which put a ton of pressure on your neck or my neck. And it didn't quite get the job done, or maybe it did. But sometimes I get bruises on the side of my neck from the pressure that's put there. Yeah.
Sure. So I guess what I'm trying to, the point I'm trying to make to people is that if you really step back and think about it, and I'm guilty as charged because I never stepped back to think about it. First of all, I'll tell you, I never thought that you could tear your carotids. I thought they were armor. You know what I mean? But compared to soccer or basketball or football, I think jiu-jitsu is probably one of the highest sports on the list. If you were a doctor and you had to step back and think about it and say, which sport has the highest probability of tearing a carotid, I would probably say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe wrestling. What else? I don't know. But the point is I had a tear on my carotid artery on the left side. I did not know that it was torn. How long the doctor says it could have been torn might have been a few weeks. It could have been longer. And what happened that day in August was just like anybody else. Sometimes you don't feel good when you go to practice, but it's Friday afternoon and your team is there and you got a great coach there and you want to learn and you want to be better. You just go on the mats anyway, right? And we train because we get through it. That's what we do. And that day, that was my mentality. I was rolling with one of my teammates, Rob Smith. He's a professional MMA guy, a former professional MMA fighter, big-time wrestler in Wisconsin, and really working his north-south chokes right now. Bigger guy. And that day he was just absolutely throwing me around like a rag doll, and I was just not feeling myself. And he even said to me after the accident, he goes, that day that you just didn't feel like yourself, but I just couldn't, I wasn't myself on the mat. I don't know how to explain it. I felt that day like I had strep throat, maybe, allergies it could be, but you never know in Wisconsin, like, you can get it in August in Wisconsin, like you can get confused, like, do I have strep or is it just allergies? And I, to be honest, I haven't gotten strep in like over 10 years. So I kind of knew something was wrong that whole week prior to the accident. Like something was wrong, but it wasn't any, like, you know what I mean? Like I never thought it would be it's a torn carotid artery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was how I felt was, and I was dry. I would like, how you put like your finger on your neck. Jiu-jitsu, your neck's always tight. So, you're putting your finger on your neck muscles, and you hope that it, like, you push a little pressure into it, and then the muscles relax, and you feel okay, right?
Yeah.
That's what I had like the weird pain on the left side of my jaw, underneath my jaw. And I was kind of like digging in there, like, am I hitting the pressure point? And every time I hit it, it would like relieve a little pain, and then I would let go of it. And it was like inside my mouth, it was like only half of my jaw felt like kind of strep throat-ish. It wasn't the whole jaw. So I thought that was kind of weird. And my 11-year-old was in the back seat. And I told her, I'm like, I was digging at it. I'm like, man, I go, Izzy, I'm like, something's just not right. She's like, because I talk to my kids, when I drive, like we just talk, and I talk out loud, just like I talk to anybody. And I was like, yeah, something's just not right. I don't know. And it was, what is she going to say? But I was just talking out loud. But she's the one, the reason I bring that up is because she's the one that brought it up after the accident and said, Dad, remember when we were in the car? And I'm like, that's right. I totally do remember that. Anyways, the left side, yeah, something wasn't right with me all week. I felt sick. I felt ill. I wasn't myself. I'm not a headache guy, so I really don't get like headaches like I've heard other people talk about. So I wasn't getting any of those symptoms. Looking back, and I don't remember for sure, but I do remember looking back, and again, time just goes, you know what I mean? Because after you have a stroke, like life keeps going, like it doesn't stop for you. And I have businesses that run and, going to speaks there. It's just been hell, but you just do it because you have to, get through it. But, looking back, you do remember times every once in a while. And during that month, like there was times where I didn't feel myself. I remember one day I did look in the mirror, and on the right side of my face, I've had 2 eye injuries that have kept me out of jiu-jitsu because I've gotten, one was a misdiagnosis. I thought I had something cut in my eye, but it was actually what the hell do they call it? Not a tumor, but like a, I can't remember, but like something on like something on your eye that like I thought my eye was scratched.
Okay.
And I went 2 weeks and it wasn't healing. Like I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't see. Like this is a long time ago. Okay, but it was. I'll think about it. But it's not a cyst, not a tumor. But it was like when you're it was inflamed. Long story short, I was misdiagnosed by the doctors. I was out of work for like 6 weeks because of this thing. Literally couldn't open my eyes. It was hell. And then after that, probably 3 months later, I was training at Ben Rothwell's in Kenosha, and I ended up going for a knee bar on somebody and put the guy's toe into my eye. So I've had 2 eye accidents on the right eye, so my right eye's already blurry. And I remember one day, like I was looking in the mirror and I was like, man, dude, your right eye is really droopy a little bit today. And to me, I was just thinking like, it's just because of the eye injury, because it always kind of looked a little bit droopy after the 2 injuries. So let's get back to the story. What happened was torn carotid on the left side. Rob Smith throws me in a north-south choke, and I'm not tapping because I can breathe on my left side, because he's got the right side carotid, if that makes any sense. If it's a north-south choke, he's got his right bicep on my right carotid.
Sure.
And he's squeezing. That's completely cut off because he's a big, big dude. And he adjusted, and I would hold out, and then I would wait for him I would wait for him to transition to a side control or knee on stomach because he doesn't think he has the choke. And that day we've got Mark Lehman here now teaching us jiu-jitsu, so everything has just completely changed. So this time Lehman was sitting there, and Rod had been working with Lehman on we've been working a lot of back chokes, rear naked chokes. I mean the whole month prior to the accident, Byron, that's all we were working on is back take drills. So Mark's philosophy on the back is really interesting. It's you're gonna kill the neck in the transition, which basically means that as you're taking the back, you're also attacking the neck. So as the hooks are going in, that's what the practitioner is thinking about. And at the same time, those hooks are going in and they're thinking about the hooks. You're attacking the neck and you're finishing with the rear naked choke. So that was that whole month before in August, that's all that he had me working on. There's another guy coming in from out of town to do privates with him. And he and I would just go back and forth, attacking each other's necks in transition, get out, et cetera, et cetera. And that went on for a whole month. Anyways, it was either during that, or it's the punch chokes, because I don't know. That was what we were working on a lot that whole month. So anyways, long story short, Rob doesn't transition. I'm holding his left hand away from my left carotid artery, and I'm breathing. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Come on, Rob, you got to transition." But I'm not moving either. But I'm thinking about waiting for Rob to transition. Next thing you know, Rob just let go of me, and he stood up and he looked over me, and mind you, my eyes are wide open and I'm staring right at him, and he goes, "You were out," and I go to say. I was going to say I wasn't out, but instead what came out of my mouth was, and I was like, holy shit. I'm thinking to myself, what? I can't talk? And then I was like, and then next thing you know, Rob's trying to pick up my feet and get air to my head, and I'm trying to sit up, but my whole right side of my body is paralyzed. It doesn't move. So I'm trying to sit up, and everybody's kind of still rolling. They're all kind of looking at me. Nobody knows what's going on. I can't talk and I can't move. They think I just had a wicked choke. What they don't know was what just happened in that moment was when Rob cut off the right side of my neck with his right arm on the north choke. The the blood clot that was sitting on my left carotid artery for 2 weeks or a month or longer because of the dissection that hadn't healed on the left carotid artery shot the clot to my brain. And that crossed over to the right side, which is why I couldn't speak, which is why I couldn't move. So I was completely paralyzed, and that's what happened. And that's exactly from when my article came out initially. Like, there was all kinds of like speculation as to like, oh, well, everybody has strokes every day, and this and that and this and that. Well, here's what happened though. This was not the doctors. There was no plaque buildup. It wasn't because I'm a white belt with that. When Chris Martin was a white belt 10 years ago, he was 225 pounds and probably not on the best diet. Maybe a guy like that, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little bit heavier, when I was not in shape. But now jiu-jitsu, like, my numbers are perfect. Like, there's no issues with, I've never had to be on high blood pressure or diet. I rolled 1 to 2 times a day, for the last five years, especially. I mean, but I've been rolling for 10 years. I mean, this is a lifestyle just like everybody else. I'm in shape. I eat good. I take care of myself. I don't drink. I don't smoke cigarettes. And I don't have any family issues. The fact of the matter, which people are having a very challenging time getting their head around, is the fact that there was a dissection in the carotid. And when you have a dissection, the only thing that's going to heal your carotid artery is the blood clot. The blood's going to clot together to heal it. And what happened that day was a fluke accident. Only 2% of all strokes come from carotid artery dissections, but they are the leading cause of strokes in patients who are under 45 years of age. So reports, and I've done there has been a number of studies that have come out about this in mixed martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Because after this happens to you, you start to seek answers. And one of those answers was, after the doctors told me what happened, I'm looking, when I was in the hospital bed and they're telling me, like, first of all, I could hardly type. I could hardly remember words. So I was laying in bed. Like, the first thing I go to when I got my cell phone back was Google, and I just started typing in strokes from chokes, strokes in jiu-jitsu. And I read some articles. I found a bunch of stuff online, but again, at that point, I'm just trying to recover. But there are a number of doctor publications, and there are a number of studies discussing exactly, basically what happened to me. However, mine's a little bit different than a lot of these other stroke patients who they knew right away I needed help because I was basically, I was paralyzed and I couldn't speak. So, I mean, you're going to call the doctor 911. But a lot of these guys who I've started to interview and document the interviews and write reports on after my conversations with them and hearing their stories, I am not the first person that this has happened to. And there are some other jiu-jitsu practitioners, a good handful of them, that this has happened to. And their stories are different than mine because they go a couple days without treatment, and some have suffered very severe consequences. Some have suffered death, and some have been fortunate enough to have just a little bit of damage to the brain, and are still active, and but it's all coming off of the artery dissection from our sport. And the reason I'm out discussing this with everybody is it's very simple. It's the risk. I'm not trying to shut down the sport. I love it. I have a business in this. I have a future in this. I have visions. This is my lifestyle. It's something I hold very near and dear to me. Otherwise, trust me, Byron, I would have walked away from this, after the doctors told me to. But that's not what I do, and that's not the way that I would want to live. But what I can do is make my teammates aware of the risks that exist. I can make the coaches aware of the risks that exist, and they can take the responsibility to understand that this is a reality, and that they need to understand what they need to do, what they need to look for. They need to put it in their curriculums and programs, because I'll tell you right now, if this starts happening, now maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's not, but when I had my stroke, 2 guys had the same thing happen to them in the exact same month, within 30 days of me. I mean, that's kind of ironic. But that being said, what I'm trying to explain is that if more of these incidents happen, then our sport could potentially be at risk of, you tell me. I mean, I thought I read an article that said, like, people were being arrested in Australia or something like that because they were holding a jiu-jitsu tournament, and it's illegal, like combat sports, or I don't know what I read, but I just don't want to see any scrutiny come on the sport because of stuff like that happened to me. And more importantly, I don't want any of my friends, my kids. I have kids. I have a 9 and 11-year-old daughter who practices sport, and I'll tell you right now, they have teammates here at Nova Gyms in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and this is a concern for us. We are changing the way that we do business with those kids, and the way that we do we practice our jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And not letting kids just go after each other's necks. I mean, and even with the adults, like I coach the Marquette team, which is a young college team. Most of these people have never done jiu-jitsu before. So, I'm telling my story to them. I am showing them how to be good training partners with each other, and how to mitigate the risk or mitigate the impact of, you and I, if we train together, Brian, like we can work on the, RNCs and stuff like that. Do I really need to squeeze the shit out of your neck to get you to tap in that little, but that's kind of what we do. We rip on chokes on each other, and, most people aren't aware that something like this could happen. So my story was very dramatic, to say the least. And the way it happened was very dramatic and scary. But other people, the people that I've interviewed so far, these guys are going home. I mean, they're talking to their training partners. Like one guy, I will be releasing these interviews. I've already released my friend Ray. He's out in California. He was a white belt. That's already his and I's interview is already out. But basically, overzealous blue belts with a new white belt, just going for the neck, going for the crank, torn carotid. 3 days later, somebody finds him on the ground in his home, and luckily get him to the hospital. He missed. He has he has more, damage to the brain than I did. but he was a really healthy dude. I mean, just ripped, jacked, triathlete. But that didn't come from, it's not like, oh, you're just an old dude with, you're predisposed to, no, his artery was dissected.
So Chris, just to make sure that I'm on the same page as far as what happens when your artery gets dissected, I'm picturing 2 straws or 2 tubes, one inside the other one, and the one that's inside gets kind of torn a little bit due to trauma, or I guess that's what we're talking about here. Is like, in theory, one of the chokes or accumulation of the chokes caused that little bit of a tear to form inside of your artery. Am I on the right page on that one so far?
The way the doctor explained it was there was 2. Your artery has like 2 little, like there's like a V, I want to say. And again, I'm not a medical doctor.
Yeah, neither am I.
But the way he explained it to me, because he was showing me a picture at my first follow-up visit was just in January. So the stroke was, this is my neurosurgeon, Dr. Binder at the medical college in Wisconsin. My August was my stroke. My first follow-up with my neurosurgeon, which is him, was January. And at the end of the appointment, he goes, oof. He goes, this is, you want to see something scary? And he pulled out the X-ray after I got the surgery. So what they do is after they take me in an ambulance after the accident, they rush me to the emergency room. They put me to sleep, and they shoot something called TPA up you, and it basically busts up the clot.
Yeah.
And gives you an opportunity to survive and minimizes the brain damage.
So,
yeah.
So you had a tear on the inside of your artery, and over the course of probably some days, I don't know how long, but a clot formed over that just to help that, I guess, heal, right?
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
I was trying to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So while you're getting jostled around or maybe choked or something like that, and it happened to be like a north-south choke, that comes loose, much like you would pick a scab and it would fall off. You could pick a scab on purpose, or you could, bump it up against something hard and the scab gets dislodged. Except what
was happening there, though, was that the right side was completely cut off. So eventually your left side is going to try to do everything it can to get as much oxygen as it can, and that is what shot the clot up to the brain.
Okay, so maybe increased pressure on that side?
I guess. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just trying to make it simple enough for me to understand what happened. And so that clot went up, and when you have a clot in your brain, it blocks some of the arteries, and that's a stroke.
It is a stroke.
And so, like, you think of a stroke, you think of usually older people, with high blood pressure or high cholesterol, or a history of smoking and that sort of thing. You don't think of a younger person who is actively working out getting a stroke, but that's what happened. And that's the stat that I rattled off just a couple minutes ago. I said 2% of all strokes come from carotid artery dissection, which is the leading stroke in patients under 45. So, 2%. This is 2%, and usually it's people under 45, probably because they're active. Yeah.
And the reports that they write about this, and these are medical reports, they say that this is a potentially devastating and unrecognized problem in young, healthy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu enthusiasts, and awareness is crucial. And that's not me saying that. This is reports coming from these medical doctors. So that is, again, that's the purpose of me getting on these shows. Is it's, hey guys, it's not let's shut down the sport. This is horrible. This is the worst thing in the world. It's not. It's us to understand that this exists. There is a risk that exists in our sport, and I can assure you this: if you are an instructor in any capacity or a teammate, the last thing you want to do is to see one of your teammates on the ground, and then not recovering like I did, but instead having some severe problems and being disabled. And here's the thing: it's everybody's like, Chris, you're recovered, yeah, full recovery, and it's like, dude, the truth is, it's like, no, dude, I'm not recovered. I mean, it's hard. There's some days I'm trying to I can't spell a word, but there's spell check. We have iPhones now, so that is a lot easier for me. If I had to write everything, no, I'm not going to be able to spell. I'm a Marquette graduate, so I mean, I'm an insurance agent. I've been doing insurance and benefits for the last 16 years, and a lot of that time is spent typing on the computer, having conversations, speaking in front of people. It's nonstop. And since my stroke, I have had to get shit done, and it hasn't been easier. And the truth is I am brain damaged. Like if you can't spell 8 months later, and some days you can't say certain words, you have a little bit of issues. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But I'm not Chris Martin that I was before. That's 100%. My jiu-jitsu game is not Chris Martin who it was before, and that's kind of sad because I was really, 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 it's different now. I'm training differently, and it is what it is. It's only 8 months after this accident, so I'm still I'm still in transition mode. So some days I feel like it's the end of the world, like, oh, my jiu-jitsu is never going to be the same, blah 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 blah. Because the truth is like I can't afford to let people sit and rank on my neck. I have a stent about 4 inches long in my carotid artery now, and if that gets the doctors say it's not a good idea to get that thing to be damaged in any way. It could possibly cause potential issues again in the future. And that's, I've got 2 kids, and I'm not interested in dying. I can tell you the day that happened to me, a lot of things go through your head. And I really did believe that I was dying, and I was accepting it. And, I was thinking about my kids. I was thinking about, what my purpose was here in life. I was thinking about other people in my life that have died, and I was thinking about them and what they were. I was trying to feel what they were feeling when they were dying in those final moments. I was comforting myself, and I will tell you right now, one other piece of awareness that we all need to be aware of in life is that accidents do happen. I was fortunate. What did put me at comfort during those moments, if at any comfort, if I told you you're going to die, Byron, in the next 20 minutes here,
I'd probably hang up. I got other stuff to do.
I know you would, but the truth is you start thinking about things, and you're going to have to start coming to terms with choices that you made in your life. And I was trying to figure out if these choices that I made in my life were the right choices. One of the decisions that did help me a little bit feel comfortable was the fact that I did have a life insurance policy. I do have a life insurance policy that was going to be left to my kids because that's something that's important. But then I went into surgery, and modern medicine's different, and what used to kill you now disables you. And when I woke up in the hospital bed the next day, or not the next day, the same day, hours later, my family's looking at me. I'm kind of looking around, and I'm waking up, and they're kind of telling me what's going on. And the first thing that pops into my head is, I put me at comfort, a little bit of comfort, because remember, just hours ago, I was thinking I was going to die, and I was paralyzed, and I couldn't remember my kids' names. And now I wake up in the bed. The first thing I thought about was my disability policy. I'm like, dude, are you disabled, bro? Oh, I'm like, I got that policy. I'm like, I wonder what it pays, and so, you're having these conversations with yourself because you have to put yourself at comfort in these situations. And, luckily I never had to use a life insurance policy. Luckily I never had to take a claim on my disability insurance policy. But I can tell you that to have at those moments that comfort is something that every family man who we're all these alpha warriors. We don't think we're going to die. Okay. We don't think it's going to happen to us. We are the typical average males. And these same typical average males, we are all the one of 3 people who are going to have a stroke, 1 in 2 people who are going to have cancer, 1 of 4 people that are going to have some type of debilitating accident. It is our responsibilities and our family's responsibilities to have financial protection as well. So, again, I know it sounds like a sales pitch here, and it really is, because you need to buy insurance and have that protection. Because accidents do happen. So that's just a side note from.
Yeah, I mean, the insurance would not, if you did pass away, it's not going to, there'll be a giant hole in the lives of your loved ones where you once were. But having that money and that support will help them piece their lives back together and help them have the type of life you wanted them to have, versus struggling to, keep a roof over their head or being passed around from different family members trying to find the right place to stay. The money in that situation will make things a lot easier. And that's really what you're comforted by.
And that's why I'm working right now. I sacrifice myself, and, I'm doing this for my kids. I'm doing this. You do this for your family, go to work every day and try to create a community and, try to make positive impacts in the community. You're doing it for your kids. You know what I mean? So you're right. I mean, that put me at comfort. But at the same time, I will tell you this. As I was putting myself into comfort zone with that thought of having the insurance, I realized in the ambulance that money means absolutely nothing, though, because the girls need daddy here. And that gave me, I went into a zone where I took all of my energy and aggression and concentration. I started screaming in the ambulance. They probably thought I was nuts, trying to dump adrenaline to my body to tell myself I do not want to go. So, I believe that during that time of what was happening to me, I do believe that I did make a choice that I was going to live no matter what. I was pretty confident that the doctors were going to pull me through. I was just give me to the hospital so they can fix me. That's what I was thinking to myself. And when the ride was kind of going too wrong, that's when I kind of started to get amped up and go into this real adrenaline state and screaming, trying to get control. I mean, literally, you can see everything that's going on around you. You can make eye contact with people. They're going to communicate with you, but you can't communicate back because you don't know how to speak. That's what's happening. You're not out of it. You're not into some delusional world. You are witnessing everything that happens, and it's scary because it's it's like somebody described it. Is it like a nightmare? Yeah, I guess it is like a nightmare. You know what I'm saying? You really can't speak, and you can't even when I got to the hospital, they were asking me right before they were pulling me in, they were asking me how to get a hold of my parents, and I was trying to give them my mom's number, and it's just they were holding, they were like with their fingers. So I couldn't speak. So they were like, all right, tell me, okay, so is it 414? And I'd be like, I'd nod my head yes. They're like, okay, is it, and they would say 2, and they would hold up the number 2. I'd be like, no. They're like 3. I'd be like, no. They're like 4. I'd be like, yeah. And then it would be like, and then like, okay, the next number. So it's 414, 4.
Yeah, Chris, don't give out your mom's number over the. But yeah, what happened was, I mean, your speech is largely shut down during a stroke. Chris, I'm a firefighter. I see people having strokes multiple times a week, and you could see the look in their eyes. Their brain is not working correctly, and they know enough to know that, but they can't tell you. They can't formulate that sentence quite right, and it's terrifying. So that's definitely one sign. If you're rolling with somebody and you get off the mat and they're slurring their words and they're having a hard time even formulating a sentence, one that we use sometimes around here is we ask them to repeat a phrase, and the phrase that we do a lot is, "You can't teach an old dog new tricks," because it's kind of a weird saying. It kind of throws like old dog new like something with your brain that it crosses some wires, and they can't say that sentence. They'll say, well, you can't teach a dog tricks, or they just kind of mess it up. And it's like, okay, you are likely having a stroke. That's one sign is the problems with speech. If I'm rolling with somebody and they're not quite acting right, what are some other signs to look out for?
Well, I mean, the other guys that I spoke with, one guy, Jay, the first guy, he didn't know. He went through the whole practice and it was, it was whatever. But this one guy, Jay, said that after the practice, like, that's where it was like you said, like he was trying to speak sentences and like the sentences weren't coming out. He thought he was really jet lagged, like something's just not right. And like he even drove home. I think right now the best thing that you can look at is like you said, the smiling, like tell people to smile, look for the droopy face, stick out your tongue. Then it's not something that should be embarrassing. Like, cause ever since my stroke, like I freak out all the time. You know what I mean? Like I have like total PTSD. And so like, I'll be rolling with like the Marquette kids and I'll be like pulling them aside. And, like, I'm like, I'm going to smile. Okay. I'm like, they're like, no, dude, you're fine. You're fine. But you go through this, like it was a horrible experience, but the speech is the best. I think what you just mentioned is, engaging these people and making sure that they're engaged with you in a conversation. Like you said, somebody's babbling because they just got choked or something like that, or, they don't feel right and they got that lightheaded feeling. It's not like, oh, dude, you're fine. Just go sit out, like go sit out. But then when they're done, like don't let them like get off the mats and like, kind of like sneak out of the gym. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Tony, before you leave, like, let's have a conversation real quick. Hey, how's it going? How was that choke? Can you speak to me? Yeah, I feel good. I'm going, what are you going to do? Just have that conversation. If something doesn't sound right with the speech, something happened. It's that simple. Something happened. And that's the sign where it's like, okay, dude, something happened. And I think we need to potentially go to we need to go to the hospital because it's not wait. The guys are all going to say, wait it out till tomorrow. That's what we're all going to say. Wait it out till tomorrow. It's the speech, I think, right now. And again, Byron, I'm not a doctor, but from listening to these other guys talk to me about like how like even days after, like one guy was at a barbecue and Jay was at a barbecue and the guy said to him, hey, it's good food, huh? And he's like, yeah, the patio's great. You know what I mean? Like talking about the patio, but like the conversation was supposed to be about the food. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna put out his interview shortly too, so people can, you know, hear more about their stories but that the fact of the matter is, like I said, is that we also need to be aware of the way that we train with our partners. You know, how bad do we really need to really attack the neck? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, Chris, I want to get a little bit more. I do want to talk about training safely with our partners, but I do want to talk a little bit more about these symptoms, because I think that's where we need to create a lot of awareness, because it's good on the mat. You know, you've got your typically younger people, and it's good off the mat. You know, you're around people who are elderly. The same signs are going to present themselves, and it could make a huge difference. And you talked about somebody, I'll go to sleep and see if it works. That is a disaster.
Yes.
You have about 4 hours to get these strong clot-busting drugs into your system, and then they can't give them to you. And if you wait after that window, they try to deal with it in other ways, but like the miracle drug is off the table. You're not going to get it. It'll do more damage than it will do good. So the problem is that it doesn't hurt. You know, we don't want to go. Well, you know, you break my arm. Yeah, I want to go to the hospital. This hurts like crazy. It doesn't hurt. You're confused. You know, that sort of thing. Speech is a big one. Also, another sign would be like weakness on a side. A common thing will be that, like, you know, have them hold a couple fingers in each hand and have them squeeze your fingers with the same grip, like squeeze my fingers equally, and they can't do it on one side. It's really weak. That's another sign of a stroke. And you talk about the smile thing. What you're looking for is the smile is not look right. There's one side of the face is kind of droopy, and typically when we're just talking, you might notice it, but when you try to smile, the corner of your mouth doesn't lift up like it should. And that's because half of your brain, not half of your brain, but one side of your brain is not functioning properly, and that's it's the opposite side of the brain, but whatever, is not firing the proper nerves to make you smile correctly, because it can't get the oxygen it needs.
And then the other thing somebody mentioned to me is the stroke awareness is it's not just for the person that's having the stroke. It's for all of us other people who are around somebody that's having a stroke, because the majority of the people who are having a stroke, like you said the word perfect, is confused. They're trying to like get a grip on to like what exactly is happening, and they're like trying to come to terms, and they're like, it's like a total mind game. Like, what's wrong with me? I'm just going to sleep it off. I'm just going to do this. Like your brain is trying to rationalize with itself, and at the same time it's damaged. So that's where somebody else is supposed to recognize the symptoms.
Yeah. And Chris, for you, that's, I mean, your daughters are like that lifeline for you, because hey, if I'm ever acting confused, and if my speech is messed up, call 911 for me, even if I don't think it's a good idea, and get the ambulance to come in and talk to me and get professionals in here, because I can't make that decision at that point in time. And that's, you know, you could be on a phone call with your parents who are across the other side of the world, and they could be slurring their speech and talking all confused. You could hang up and say goodnight, or you say, you might be having a stroke, and let me talk to somebody else who's at the house with you, and you could really make a difference from thousands of miles away just by talking to somebody and seeing, like, okay, this person is not acting right, and I could tell that over the phone.
That's exactly right.
There's a big deal to know about this, because in all this, time is a factor. That's why if you have a stroke in the middle of the night, that's tragic, because we don't know when you had that. But if you had, you know, after you ate dinner, you were good to go, you're talking, having a good time, and somewhere between dinner and the next hour or two, you're confused. Then we have a timeline, and hopefully somebody is with you to help establish that timeline, and then they can give you the good medicine.
And that's what people understand when you say like the good medicine. It's a clot busting drug that didn't exist in the past, but it does now. and but you can only get it within, I want to say, 4 to 8 hours. And if you wait like on the 9th hour or the 10th hour, then they're not allowed to give it to you. Like it's not even possible. So that's what you meant by when you said off the table. It's not because it's just they're not allowed to. It's not.
And if they don't know when you got the stroke, they're not going to give it to you. If you go home alone and that's kind of unfortunate, and no one's around to hang out with you, and you're just confused, or no one's noticed your change in behavior. That's a big danger.
That's what happened to Ray Parada. So the first person that I did an interview with that I sent it to you, so you might want to backlink it if you can. But Ray's story, that is exactly what happened. So take a listen to his podcast or interview with me that we recorded on YouTube, and that's exactly what happened to him. He was, a couple days, and he was on his own, and he will tell you exactly what happened, what to look for, what he would have done better, what people should think about. He'll tell you how it happened, and that's exactly right. So it's great to be prepared, and that's, I think, I didn't know you were a fire emergency. And the interesting thing is exactly how you described it. Like, it was so frustrating for me, Byron, because I just wanted somebody to tell me like it was going to be okay and like look me in the eye, but like nobody would look me in the eye. And now that I look back and hear you say that, like, because you can't get anything out of me, like there's no purpose, you know what I mean? But I totally felt like I was dying. I felt like nobody cared. I felt like I couldn't.
And that's a drop on the ball on the service. I mean, clearly, many people who can't communicate are able to comprehend well, and that was your state. It would have taken a few seconds to say, "Hey, I'm Byron. I'm here to take care of you today. It looks like you might have had a stroke. The good news is we're going to get you to the hospital quick and get you to some of the best doctors that are around, and they're going to give you some really good medicine and help you out."
That would have been really comforting to hear.
Absolutely. But opposed, I mean, you were left nervous. So I'm online, bumping around looking at different stroke things, and they use the acronym FAST as a way to remember things. And it stands, F is facial drooping. We talked about that with the smile. If a smile is kind of not look normal, one side of the corner of the mouth is not going up. The A in FAST is arm weakness. And you could do that by just having them squeeze my hands, and one arm will be significantly weaker, probably. And speech difficulty is the S in FAST. If they can't hold a conversation, if they seem confused and they can't piece their words together, that's a big deal. And then the T in FAST is time to call 911, and that is a good decision at that point. You could load them up and take them to the hospital, but once you get the ambulance there, they're basically at a mobile hospital kind of, and they're getting more care than you could give in the car ride. And of course it's always a little bit riskier driving somebody to the hospital because you're nervous and you're not able to start an IV, and that's like, there's a lot of benefits to calling an ambulance to help you out. Right. And that's all your teammates. Like your teammates, they could have packed you up and took you home and dropped you off in bed, or they called 911. And that is a huge difference in the quality of your life today.
That's huge. Well, in my situation, though, that's the thing, though. My situation was definitely different because, like, there was no way around. Like, they wouldn't have been able, like, you wouldn't have been, like, I was in no state to be dropped off at the crib. Like, they'd
have to carry you in,
Just, like, it was like I was dying. But what you're saying is going to be accurate for about 95% of the other cases where the guy's not like just laying there paralyzed and like, it's like they're kind of with it and they're kind of not with it. And that's where you really gotta make sure that every step that you just said, that's the protocol. I mean, really, I would love to see, in every school, having that list of what we need to do listed, so that and part of everybody's protocol and discussion. Like I said, when I said earlier that this is, we're changing the way that we do the business, it is going to be bringing awareness to this and not hiding it under the table. I've had people say, Chris, why are you talking about this? This is not good for your business. I'm like, dude, how can you brush this under the mat? You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be part of the business, because it's got to be safety first when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We all have responsibilities now. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be honest. Like, Jiu-Jitsu is, fastly growing. It's new to the United States, and since it's been here, I think we can all honestly say that it's kind of been a free-for-all to some extent. And even with the tournaments and different schools teaching different things and this and that, that's fine and well. It is what it is. That's jiu-jitsu. But it is the true matter of the fact that it has been slightly unregulated. And, like I said, I've spoken to black belt coaches here in Wisconsin who never knew that something like this could happen. I spoke to Braulio Estima about it, and his quote after he heard about it, he said, I can't believe it. He goes, I've never heard of anything like this before. And then he after he heard the story, his quote was, gentle art my ass. And I talked to Patrick Baton about it. He's Europe's first Brazilian black belt. He in Europe has never heard anything like it. I talked to Luis Heredia about it. He had never heard anything about this in Brazil or anything. So, these are guys that have been doing it for 30 years, Byron. So they've never heard of it. So and either does Dave Rosenmarkel in Wisconsin, who has probably been rolling for 15 years, and you know what I'm saying. So 15 yeyears, 30 years, and these guys have all never heard about it. So I've never heard about it. I don't know if you have. And
no, I've never heard of this. But the good thing with that is that it's not common. We've all heard of cauliflower ear. We've all seen cauliflower ear. It's less common than that because you would see it a lot. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty rare. But the thing is, it's not hard to know the signs, and statistically, knowing these signs will help you off the mat more likely. More likely you'll see somebody at work who's having something like this, or a family member who's a bit older, and you'll make a difference there. But knowing these signs on and off the mat will make these rare cases that this has happened a lot more salvageable.
100%. I
don't do like the striking arts that cause. I don't like to get hit in the head. I think that it's hard to get hit in the head without actually causing some sort of brain trauma. So I'm not doing that. It's not fun, and B, I don't want to mess with my brain. But I do think that this is so rare as far as the many thousands that are training, and how rare. How many has Braulio been in contact with? So many, and he's never heard of it. But if he does hear of it, if he does see the signs on his mat, he'll react immediately. And that's what we need to do. We don't need to scare everybody like this is going to happen to you. You know what? Probably not. But if it does happen to somebody you need to help
100%.
them.
And I think that's a great start to just keeping it at the point where we don't see this stuff anymore. Hopefully I'm the last person to ever have this happen to.
But probably
maybe
not. No. I mean, we, like you said, we're taking trauma to our necks. This could cause a little tear inside of our artery that could form a clot, and then it could come loose. It doesn't happen a lot, but it could happen. So how are you training? Now you have a stent in your neck. I mean, how do you train safely with that?
Don't let them pass your guard, number one. And if you do, you're thumbing the collar, you're keeping everything, you're breaking grips off the collar a lot quicker. You're playing Spider Guard De La Hiva. You're training people you're teaching more omoplatas to your students than you are teaching triangle chokes. So then they're attacking more omoplatas, so then you're put in that position at a more frequent rate. But the thing is, it's like, dude, you just got to be aware. Like, I'm completely aware. I'm rolling also with people that I'm comfortable with, that, are aware of my condition. They still grab the collars and stuff like that. They kind of still look to attack the choke, but I go to where before I may let somebody kind of wiggle in a choke here and there and be careless about like my grips. Now I won't do it. And if I have to roll with like a higher level person that I don't know who they are, I'm just going to have to tell them like, yo, dude, I got a stent in my neck. Do me a favor and just minimize any type of choking. And, that's just, I don't know, man. I'm at a weird point in my jiu-jitsu career because I'm 40 years old. Okay. I've been rolling for 10 years. I've been coaching for 8 years. And now I'm not competing. I have no interest in going to the Worlds. I'm more interested right now in, building my communities, building my tribe, building healthy families, because jiu-jitsu's had such a great impact on me. And unfortunately we're talking about a scary accident. And, I believe that's just one chapter in this whole journey that I'm on. But for me, it's more about the community itself, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's what I love about it. And so my training is different now. You know what I mean? Like I still feel. I mean, it's not like. Here's the thing: when you're training to be just the best. And, I'm still training to be the best. I'm always training to be the best I can. But in jiu-jitsu, there's always ways that you can get better by training harder, training more frequently, training with higher level people. That's just it is what it is. You know what I mean? So, for me right now, I'm embracing this change in my jiu-jitsu to the fact that I'm a coach. And I'm not a competitor anymore. I have nothing to prove to anybody but myself. And the only thing that I want to prove to myself is what I started when I started this whole journey was I want to help other people and change their lives like jiu-jitsu's changed my life. And if I can do that through teaching and coaching, which has helped me through my personal growth, and then help those people learn how to teach and coach, then I'm doing my part to spread a very positive message with jiu-jitsu, because I believe, just like Carlos, that the world is a better place if everybody did jiu-jitsu, and this is my way of helping spread that and getting more people involved and active into the sport.
Chris, I've had a change in my mindset as far as keeping myself safe on the mat. If I get hurt, I will miss work. There's few injuries I could get and be able to go to work. I have been avoiding injuries successfully for quite a while. And my biggest thing that I do is I am 100% responsible for all the injuries I get. It's that simple. If I want to roll with the big guy who's out to kill me and he hurts me, that's my fault. Why is that my fault? Because I rolled with him. If I'm rolling with the super competitive guy who always gives me good rolls and he hurts me, why is that my fault? Because he didn't understand that, yes, I was in a spot where I should be tapping. Yes, I would be tapping, but my hands are trapped or whatever. Like, I need to communicate with my teammates how important my safety is. And that's where I think you and your kind of your unique situation, having a stent in your neck, you don't want people pressing on a side of your neck at all. Like you started talking about having them grab your collar, and you didn't like I didn't even think about that. I'm thinking of you not wanting to get stuck in a tight choke or this or that. You don't want that hand or that gi pressed up against the side of your neck very hard.
That's the first thing I feel for. And like, I play half guard, people like attack a lot, and I'm just holding with my left hand. I'm holding my collar away from my left artery.
But Chris, nobody wants to injure your stent that's in your neck. That itself is just crazy to think that somebody would do that on purpose. What's happening is either they don't know, or they forget, or they don't realize how even that little thing of just grabbing that collar there or whatever is affecting your ability to train. And so I would say, you could even hand the new people out that hey, welcome to the club, thanks for joining or whatever. Here's this 1-page paper about me and my unique situation, and they could just say, hey, I've got a stent in my neck, and that way everybody who walks in the door immediately knows. And even that, you don't trust them right away. Obviously, it'd be harder for a new person to be choking you than a more experienced person. All your teammates, they already know. The ones that know you well. I would even, if I had a stent in my neck, I would dye like a 6-inch section of my gi collar red or black or something, like just a reminder. Hey guys, that part is really off limits to me, and I can't train with this up against my neck. So if you're grabbing that or pushing that into my neck, I'm just going to tap. And I'll probably remind you, hey man, remember the die? I don't want to die doing this. Just help them train with you safer. I think that those and good teammates will want to do that.
And that's kind of how I feel. Like I said, since the accident, like I haven't had any issues. I haven't had my training partners. I feel them giving off. If they come close to like a paper cutter or something like that. I feel in a good place with my training. Like I said, it's not the best because I'm not the same that I was before. Like I was telling my doctor, before it's like you can go kamikaze, like you can work, whatever you want, whenever you want, as hard as you want.
Yeah.
Put yourself in the most vulnerable positions whenever you want, because in your mind you're getting better. I can't do that anymore. You know what I mean? So, I'm aware of it. At the same time, like I said, I do have an advantage. I've been rolling for a while. You know what I mean? So, 10 years of consistent rolling, and I do feel like I still have control of each match, especially with newer people, like I said, I've been fortunate, but just like you said, at the end of the day, it is my responsibility. It is my fault. If this thing snaps again, I have a problem with it, it's my fault. It's not the training partner's fault, because that means I didn't either do the right thing by making them aware of the situation, or, B, I was pushing my limits too hard again. And that's a choice that I'm going to have to make, but it's still a path that I'm on right now, and I'm embracing it. I've embraced it. Like, I believe everything happens for a reason. I believe that my game can and will get better because of my setbacks, and I've had really good mentors too, throughout the process. Like Braulio Estima. He's been a tremendous mentor for me. I've had a number of conversations with him, and he is somebody who's overcome adversity. He was paralyzed, and he got back, and months later beat Jacare, who was the biggest target that he had, the biggest goal he ever had. And to hear him not only hear his story, but then also, just to hear, like he said, he'd ask me, how I'm doing, how I'm training. He would just be like, yeah, he's like, just be aware. And he's like, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? So, just to have that like confidence, like, dude, you'll be fine, dude. You'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like that's huge. Like that's somebody who's done it. You know what I mean? And so I do believe that my everything will continue to go into a positive direction with my jiu-jitsu practice, but also my program and everything that is involved with jiu-jitsu, because everything happens for a reason, and this is a sport that it's all about overcoming adversity. That's what makes us better, and that's what makes us resilient. I mean, and so I do believe that this accident was just part of the whole process for me.
Yeah, that's a positive attitude to have, and I'm glad you're sharing your story and helping get the word out. So that we talked a little bit about how you're training differently. We talked about awareness as well, as far as teammates watching out for each other. Any ideas about training just jiu-jitsu differently or safer as a whole? Or
yes, I mean, we got to start with the kids, right? So let's start with the kids and let's kind of move up. Again, I mean, here's the thing. If the rear naked choke is the most effective choke there is in jiu-jitsu and in self-defense, period. I mean, would you agree with me or disagree?
It'd be hard to disagree. Yeah. I mean, you could, that's an extremely effective choke.
So it to me, it's the most effective, because even in like self-defense conversations, we prefer that, that or the triangle. But, again, if I'm a smaller person, I'd rather get to the back and finish the RNC than to be on my back and finish the triangle, because you still have that. It's still hard to get your legs around a bigger person.
Sure.
They could slam you on your back. So the rear naked choke is the number one. It is the most effective choke in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, especially for self-defense. So we can't just remove that from the equation. But what we can do is, again, when I teach it, I tell people this is the lion killer. I mean, this is the first choke I show people to do. I'm still showing all my beginners. I'm like, the rear naked choke. Everything is coming off of the rear naked choke. So it's not like I'm not teaching rear nakeds. I'm teaching it from the very beginning. But what I'm showing is I'm showing it from a so technical standpoint of how to finish it the way that Mark Lehman finishes it. And I'm showing them exactly how to lock it in and how to finish it so that nobody's going to get out. And I can show it to you, and I can put it on you, and I can let my people put it on me. When they have it on me, I'm done. It's they don't even have to squeeze. And because of that, you can show them when you get here, you don't need to squeeze right now. Save that carotid artery. But they just went through the whole motion. And they are getting that choke into their muscle memory, and they're adding it to their game. It has to be in their game. It's the most effective choke. For any of the students that we send out from a tournament, these kids are going out and getting rear naked chokes to finish the match. They get to the back, they get the choke. And that's the same for when we teach self-defense. Get to the back, get the choke. If you get to the back, get the choke. And so we are very high on the rear naked choke, but what I'm doing is making sure that the people understand that we don't have to continuously inflict damage consistently. So in other words, we don't have to rake on the neck. And to be honest, I don't know necessarily if the rear naked choke is the most dangerous from what happened to me standpoint, Byron. I would tell you that what happened to me, the carotid, I would beg to assume that it came off of a punch choke.
Yeah.
Because those punch chokes hit those carotids so hard and that's something that we were working on. That we use it for opening up the guard, but then we also use it for turning people in and making them move in a certain direction so that we can set up other attacks. So the punch, but even more than the punch, it's the neck crank type chokes where you're exposing that carotid, and that's where the medical reports are coming in.
Okay.
And so the neck cranks, the neck ties, a lot of the the heavy darces, anytime you're cranking the neck, you're opening up and exposing that carotid artery. And when you do that, you're exposing the carotid artery is at a higher risk of getting that pressure because it's also manipulated into a certain fashion. Interesting enough, my business partner from Nova Gyms, he is like mid-50s, but years before the choke, he was always warning me about he didn't like the neck manipulations, the head cranks with the chokes because we were playing around with go-go chokes that we learned from Luis, Claudio, and Tiaga. Those are Rothwell's coaches when Rothwell used that neck crank to finish off who was it? I don't remember, but anyways, we were using those for a while, and Rob Smith was showing a lot of neck crank type chokes and darces, and my business partner pulled me aside on numerous occasions and said, I'm not comfortable with this, and you're really exposing the carotids, and it's really going to mess up people's necks, and we're trying to retain students. The last thing we need is for students not to come back because they're getting their necks cranked on by white. And see, here's the thing is he was right, because number one, that is a higher probability of danger when you're exposing the neck like that on these cranks. But then even if it doesn't cause a stroke, anytime you're cranking on the spine, I mean, from a school and retention standpoint, especially white belts and blue belts, who are just like overly aggressive and hungry already, you know what I mean? To show those guys these neck cranks, well, that's exactly what happened to Ray Parada in California, is that he had some blue belt who was overly aggressive on the neck and was going for the cranks, and that's how Ray had his stroke. So, I mean, it's a consistent conversation with the students about the fragileness of the neck, but then it's also showing them transitions on how to move. Okay, you don't have the neck. The guy's kind of doing a good job of guarding. Let's transition to somewhere else. Yeah. Where can we go next? Until you get that choke so clean that you don't have to crank and that you can put it on and let go because you killed him. You don't even have to tap him because it's on so perfect because you made all the right transitions and were able to lock him down so that you can cleanly finish off the choke. And that's how I'm training right now with my partners, Byron. So my guys who are white belts, blue belts, I'm setting up the chokes that they're so clean that it's like I don't even have to squeeze. Like it's like boom, you're dead. You know what I mean?
The idea that the neck cranks and those sort of things are more likely to cause that sort of a tear in the arteries.
Yeah.
So as somebody if you're stuck in one and you can tough it out, and you need to evaluate that and say, well, is that what I need to be doing right now? And if that's, I mean, you do it once, perfect, whatever. You do it twice. You do it like 10 times in a week. This is adding up. and you're not
Yeah.
able to heal and recover between those, and that's maybe where the damage really adds up. So just kind of, it's okay to tap to a neck crank. It's okay to tap to a choke that's not quite super tight, but it's starting to bother your neck, and they do put a lot of pressure in on those, and even if it's not done correctly, it could damage your neck. And we all want clean chokes that put people to sleep and don't injure their necks, but that doesn't always happen. It doesn't mean you can't tap to that and not be bothered by that. I mean, tap a little sooner on the if someone's cranking on your neck, and just the time to escape was before that was set up, not to tough it out.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the evolution. I mean, most guys are still not going to do that if unless they know the potential risks. I'll tell you, here at our academy, some of the guys who were here, who saw it, who know the story, they will tell you, they're like, yeah, man, dude, when people get my neck, I'll just let them have it.
Yeah. Fight so I guess an easy example for me, take an arm bar. You get me in an arm bar, my arm is straightened out. You don't need to hyperextend my arm. I'm happy to tap before you get close to that. But if my arm is bent and I'm fighting it, I'm fighting hard. But I'm more than willing to tap before damage is done, or even damage approaches. Like, the time to escape is before that. The time to escape these attacks on your neck is before they're locked in. Because, if I get a darce on you now and it's not quite perfect, you don't have to tap. You probably will go to sleep. But I can sure crank on it for 2 minutes straight. And, maybe it would have been wise just to say, tap and say, hey, that was kind of a crank, and just let me know kind of what would just happen there. Because I don't want to crank anybody's neck. I want the darce to put you to sleep, not to injure your neck. As weird as that sounds, people who don't do jiu-jitsu, that's kind of what we're looking for. That's good to think about, because I've definitely just thought, you look at the clock, okay, there's a minute and a half left. He's not going to finish this choke. But I also can't escape it. I think I'll just hang out here and tough this thing out, which that's not smart. He earned that position. They set the choke up. Yeah, it wasn't quite done correctly, but it might just be smarter just to move on and say, hey, you got me. Let's keep going. Let's do something else. And instead of letting somebody crank on your neck.
Your choice.
Yeah. And also, I mean, that's part of the training environment you're in. People, clean submissions I think are a lot safer than the ones that are like on that borderline.
Yeah.
So we're going a little bit longer on time, but tell me, give me a little update about the BJJ4Change.
Yeah, man. So we're still rocking and rolling. You and I had our last conversation, I think it was back in 2015.
Yeah.
Right before we were throwing together the Dominican Republic, the inaugural trip. And it was great. That was a really good time. We got a lot of cool people together. And we got some good footage from that trip. That's going to be part of the Netflix documentary that we're doing with Never Ending Light Productions. They're a 2-time Emmy Award-winning film production company. And then after we did the Dominican Republic, we went to Paris. And if you go to BJJ for the number 4change.com, you'll see the video of Paris there. We're rolling under the Eiffel Tower on a boat with Braulio and Drysdale and all kinds of real high-end legends from around the world. So we got that the little mini clip. You can take a look at the 8-minute video. There's some good interviews on there. And also in 2018, which is now, time really flies, I'll tell you that. We've got, if you go to the website, we got Hawaii, Israel, and Bali all set to go, and we're going to be filming in all 3 of those states and countries, and that will be the end of 2018. And then 2019, we're looking to get to Brazil because we have to go there. And get back to the Dominican Republic one more time to finish off what we started. And we have some updates on them. And then probably 1 or 2 unreleased we want to get out to Dubai. We've been meaning to. We've been working on that, and wherever else the universe kind of takes us over the next course of 24 months, and then looking to take it to production in 2020, and hopefully to be released. When is it going to be released? If it all works out, it would be 2021. And right now, the best thing that people can do is to go to the website, put their name and information, who's going to be on these trips. We've had Cyborg, we've had Abraham Marte, we've had Rodolfo Vieira, Braulio Drysdale. So a number of really cool, and then even I think that's even cooler than just like a lot of the legends is the new up and coming progressive practitioners like the Nomadic ID tribe. They're a very progressive global Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tribe of practitioners who are teaching the sport in a different type of way, and they're looking to provide their message, and we're getting involved with them and some other smaller organizations as well who are kind of on the up and up as to BJJ4Change. And what it really is meant to share and really bring our sport together and our group, our community together as one tribe versus just different associations and whatnot, and really tell the story about what jiu-jitsu is at the bigger picture and how it affects different causes that the different coaches have that they're involved with as well. So many of these coaches have more than just the jiu-jitsu to offer. Many of them have social causes that they're working on from a bigger picture standpoint, but jiu-jitsu is the main component that is involved with those organizations and projects that they're all working on.
Wow.
So we can spread the message together, and we can follow the original intention of some of the practitioners who created the sport before us, where they wanted to see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu throughout the entire world. And it is on a global standpoint. I think there's nothing cooler right now. That's why I want to go to Abu Dhabi and Dubai. I love what the Sheikh is doing out there with the jiu-jitsu in the schools. I've always talked about that, how impressed I am. And a lot of these other, in Russia, they hold jiu-jitsu up on a high, Bearcroot, that tournament, and those guys. I mean, I've seen Putin sitting at these things, at these jiu-jitsu matches. So this is jiu-jitsu is a big deal, and a lot of high-ranking officials and military are all embracing this martial art, and I see it coming together on a global level, and we can all work together to bring jiu-jitsu to a more forefront. And most people still don't know what Brazilian jiu-jitsu is, and going back to why we're initially having this conversation is about awareness and safety. I believe, and I think we all do, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is growing faster than any the martial art ever has. It's going to keep growing. It's not going to stop. So these little hiccups in the roads which has happened to me with my accident, let's get this stuff taken care of right away. And let's put the safety precautions and the awareness in place so that when the sport does grow to its full capacity, we're all ready to go, and we've got our what together, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's cool. We'll put links to all that in the show notes. There's opportunities to travel, and if you're in the locations where you're going to head, definitely should contact and make it to those events. Chris, thanks so much for hopping on here with me, sharing your story and promoting awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Byron. I appreciate it.
I want to thank Chris Martin for getting on here and sharing his story with the audience. I could understand somebody going through the same thing and not wanting to share that. You really open up part of your life and expose yourself in a way that many people wouldn't be comfortable. But Chris is doing that, and it's a benefit to all of us to hear that story. It's kind of scary. Keep in mind, super rare. He's talked to, many black belts have been training for many, 20, 25, 30 years, and none of them have heard of this thing. Very rare situation, but something that we should be aware of, because if you're aware of it and you can catch it, it makes a big difference. So we talked about the signs of a stroke. You should know those. Not a bad idea to put something up like that in your gym. It could definitely save someone's life. It could save someone's life on the mat. Statistically, more likely to save somebody's life. It's a little bit older, family member maybe, coworker possibly. It's a very big deal. And when someone has stroke symptoms, time is a huge factor. And so the problem is, it doesn't hurt. It's just kind of a weird feeling. You're confused. You can't put your words together, but there's no pain. If it hurt like it should, because it should hurt freaking bad, because it's doing some serious damage, you would go to the hospital immediately, but it doesn't hurt. So people are able to sometimes just ignore it or not, put it off till now is not a good time. I'm busy. I have this going on. No, now is the time to do this, because the you that's tomorrow, the person that's you for the next several years and the rest of your life, will thank you for the time you've stopped and went to the hospital. And the person that's having that emergency can't figure that out because their brain isn't working properly. They need help. And that's you today, by learning the lessons that we've talked about with the interview with Chris. So I want to thank you for getting on here and talking with us about that.
Hey, Byron, I want to make a quick public service announcement here. From listening to his story, I get the impression that it was a really good grappling match, and there was nothing unusual about the way his opponent was grappling with him. But I just want to say, if you're rolling with somebody, and whether it's a shoulder lock, a foot lock, or a choke, if they're just not tapping, and you're right at the verge of hurting them, for whatever reason they're not tapping them, to me, a gym win is not worth hurting somebody. If I'm choking them and they're gurgling and they're gargling and there's no way they're escaping, I'll just switch to something else. It's not worth hurting somebody for me to get a gym win. Yeah,
there is literally no value in winning at the gym. Maybe make you feel a little bit better, but you'll feel bad if you injure somebody. Last year I got choked unconscious several times in training, and every time the person that did it was apologizing, and every time it is my fault. I didn't realize it was that close. I didn't see that happening that fast, and that's real. So this year I'm tapping sooner than later, and my goal is to get choked unconscious 0 times, to tap from chokes more times than I did last year. I don't know what the number was, but it'll be more. I know it'll be more because I'm tapping earlier, and some of those chokes I will have been able to escape but I won't be escaping because I'm not going that far as I was going, just because I know that something's off on my barometer of consciousness. Same thing with arm lock. Yeah, joint submissions. There's no reason to hurt your training partners. It's kind of a good training partner who will tap before you injure them, because that's what we're doing here. We're not trying to injure each other. That's our safety mechanism. And if you're not willing to play that game and be safe, you're really putting your training partners in an odd spot. So it's up to you to tap early enough. And if you're only somebody who's not tapping early enough, it's up to you to back off and say, hey, are you okay? I mean, usually it seems like people are tapping.
The crazy thing, Byron, your goal, like you said, is to not be choked unconscious this year. It's crazy because my goal is the exact opposite, to choke you unconscious as many times as possible this year. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they really conflict. But Gary has a good habit of letting go immediately when I tap, which will make his goal very tricky.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a lot tougher. But sometimes I just pretend like I didn't see the tap. And that's why nobody will train with me, because I'm not a good training partner.
Yeah.
So be a good training partner. Don't be like Gary.
And take a shower regularly.
Yeah, and don't be like Gary.
But this is such an important podcast episode with Chris on here. Do share this one with your friends. This is a good one for your coach to hear. as far as somebody who has some leadership role on the mat. That way that they're likely to be there if something like this happens. They're likely to be a source of somebody who says, hey, we need to call 911. And people say no. The coach stands firm on that. Yeah, we're calling. And people are less likely to back down versus somebody who's brand new to the place or somebody who's a little bit more shy. This is definitely one that coaches should be listening to. Want to give a quick shout out to our newest Patreon supporter, Michael. Last name starts with an H. Thanks so much, Michael. We've got your BJJ Brick gi patch and sticker in the mail, headed that way. They may even be there by the time you're hearing this, Michael. I don't know how quick the mail service will be. Way out where you are, you're out of the country. We'll mail these gi patch and stickers anywhere in the world. Also, I've already added Michael to the BJJ Brick private Facebook group. So next time we're interviewing somebody or something's come up, we kind of want to bat it around the community a little bit. A lot of times we'll discuss these things in the closed group Facebook group. and that's always like just kind of our insiders. And a lot of them are Patreon supporters. And the other part of them are people here locally that we train with and we know a lot. And so it's not a very big group, but they're very important to us, and Michael's a part of that. If you are interested in supporting the show, and what you're going to be doing is help keep this going, but really help us grow. What we're going to do with the funds is to make this show better, stronger, help us do more things in the future. And that's really what we're able to do with people like Michael. So thanks so much for that. There'll be a link in the show notes to Patreon. Plays a little video I made a while ago explaining how Patreon works. And most people support at $1 per episode, and we'd be thrilled if you would be helping us with that.
Hey, you know what? That's not the only way Michael supported the show. Michael suggested an article for us to talk about.
Very nice.
It's a good article. Level up with positional sparring. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to dig into it too deeply yet, but I really like it. I like positional sparring. I like one of the things he says early in the article about shoring up your weaknesses and not always going to your A game, especially if you're one of the better grapplers in your school. You can always get to the position you want to be in and then grapple from there. And that's okay sometimes, but it also has the potential to stunt your growth a little bit. So if that's you and your A game is a half guard or top side control, maybe do some positional sparring for butterfly guard or something different. And it's a great way to open up your game a little bit.
Yes, definitely, Joe. Another thing I like that Alex said, Alec is Alex Balding. He's the author of this article, and we do have a link to it on the show notes. But, positional sparring, it seems like every time we talk to a high-level person, they do talk about how they use positional sparring a lot. And what I liked about Alec was he was talking about his gym. I think he must be the instructor at the gym, but he actually has dedicated 2 classes per week solely to positional sparring. And I just thought that was awesome. I don't really know if I've seen that, classes just dedicated 100% to it. But that sounds like a school I would like to train at. And I think it would really, like Joe said, help your game. You're going to get pushed out of your comfort zone. You're not just going to spend the bulk of your time, relying on your A game. You're going to learn some other stuff. And, that's what's going to make our game better, learning, different stuff and getting better at it. And that's what positional sparring will do for you.
Yeah, and, as more experienced grapplers, we're able to cheat this. And Joe mentioned that you can always go to where you want to work and work from that. So if I want to work, side control and dealing with the underhook, I'm typically able to get to side control and work with that. But that's, me grabbing somebody who may not be as experienced with me, or maybe a guard I know I can pass and get to side control and do that positional sparring while everybody else is just rolling. That's been kind of a way that I could get positional sparring in while I'm just, training and everybody else is just rolling. But for a lot of people, if you want to work on your mount attacks, it's really tough to get to mount. And yeah, you need to have those skills, but you may just want to spend the time and just work on those a little bit, and you can't get there. That's very frustrating. And if you want to work on your mount escapes, you let people mount you, and then you have a miserable 5-minute roll. Well, that's really not what you wanted either. You wanted a little bit more cat and mouse, a little bit of a play to the game and build on that, not just struggle with that. And so that's, really positional sparring is a great tool for everybody, and it put you in the situations you want to work on. Just last week, I've been working a little bit with my daily Hiva guard. It is awful. I don't have much behind it, but I've been, trying to develop like a base game of daily Hiva. I had a hard time getting to daily Hiva because I don't have the setups to get to that position. It's easier for me. I get to attain X guard easier than get daily Hiva guard. So, yeah, many times I struggle just to sit there and get to that particular guard to work. If I had a good daily Hiva, I'd be there a lot easier, but I don't. Or if I partner up and say, hey, you mind if I work my daily Hiva guard for a little while? They would say yes, and they would work to pass it, and I'd work to sweep them or do something from there. And working those positions is great. That's a great training tool, especially if you're excited about a technique or a position, or you want to try something or really fine tune it. This is a way to like turbocharge that and get the many minutes or hours or days of time in that position, because otherwise it's going to be hard to get there consistently. And just starting from that position, working it. So somebody passes my daily Hiva guard, let's restart. What did I do wrong? Let's try it again. And they pass. Okay, let's restart with it. And I get a sweep. How did I get the sweep? Okay, this time try to avoid that sweep. And just working those positions. Man, this is a tremendous learning tool.
Hey, Byron, something we do at my gym. My coach is pretty smart, I think, and he comes up with some good ideas, and I think you'll like this. And from reading Alex's article, I think he would like it too. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he already does it. You talked about learning some tools from the position, but also needing tools to get to the position. And in our gym, if we're going to work on the daily Hiva guard, which we have been lately, coincidentally, we start in a closed guard. So you want to work on daily Hiva, I'm in your closed guard, and I do a standing guard break. I grab your lapel in your sleeve, and I stand and I pretty guard. And at that point, you transition to the daily Hiva, and once you secure the daily Hiva, then we start our positional sparring.
That's perfect. That's really adding two skills, is a skill to get to that position, and then skills from that position. And that's really what you need to get anything to work, is you need to be able to get there, funnel the match into where you want it to go, and then execute from that. That's a great way to train. Another big one the article touches on is it takes the ego out of the equation a lot of times. So, this blue belt has a mount on me, and I've been training with this blue belt since he started, this couple of years. He's yet to tap me out, and it's not that big of a deal, but it hasn't happened yet. And we start with mount as the position we're sparring with, and he catches me. The ego from that should fade significantly, and you shouldn't be upset by that or super proud either. It's kind of weird to talk about. Generally, when I get tapped out by somebody that I've been training with for a while, I'm usually pretty happy with it. I'm pretty proud that they've done that, because I will give up positions and then I will get caught sometimes. But I fight pretty hard to get out before I get caught, officially. But it does, starting in a bad position, starting with Gary in my triangle choke. If he had an ego that bothers him, I know Gary doesn't have, we wouldn't be bothered by tapping, but if he did, it should be less bothersome to deal with that, because we started here. We cut out most of the hard work of getting here, but yet our triangle, my triangle, and his defensive triangle still get to be improved dramatically. So I do think that's a great tool to help take that ego out of play.
And like Byron always says, your ego is not your amigo, my friend.
See. Yeah, check the article out. I'll put a link in the show notes. I'm looking at this thing, and he's got some pictures on here. One of them is the old Street Fighter thing. That's kind of scary looking legs on there, if you guys are there. That used to be kind of nice, and now it's like, whoa, that's scary. So you won't get it unless you go there, but there are a scary set of legs in the Street Fighter game. On the is it Chung-Li character? I don't remember, but anyway, check out the link to the article. It's a great article, really cool blog by Alec.
Yeah, thanks Alex for putting out some good content, and thanks Michael for suggesting the article. I enjoyed the read.
Want to remind you guys, we do have an event coming up. We're really excited about this. June 22, 23, 24. Kind of a big deal. It's the first ever BJJ Break live action event. We're going to be doing seminars, classes, rolling. It's going to be an amazing weekend. June 22nd is kind of more of a informal gathering, open mat style of training. We're going to be having great times and getting to know you guys and training. And June 23rd, Tim Sled is going to be here in Wichita, Kansas. He's going to be showing his jiu-jitsu. He's going to do a kids seminar, an adult seminar, something for everybody. Tim's great at explaining things and really helping build our game in a systems-based approach, which I think is fantastic. Roy Delgado, he's been here a couple times in Wichita, and when he does a seminar, man, it's a packed room. Everybody loves learning from Roy Delgado. He's a UFC veteran. He's got the legal and illegal leg lock apps. The app itself is not illegal. You can still download it and not get arrested. But no, he's just a wizard at leg locks. And, I was able to roll with him a little bit over the summer. Maybe it was in the spring. And he's just so fun to be around, and he's having a good time, and just amazing technician. And yet again, his methods of explaining things and performing on the mat, his teaching is amazing. So we're talking about who to get for our first kind of BJJ Brick camp. These two names were super high on the list, and they both said yes, and we were pumped. June 24th, it's BJJ Brick. We're going to be teaching you guys some jiu-jitsu. I'm putting together some things I want to show you guys, some of my favorite techniques, some of my favorite concepts. Anything Gary wants to throw in will be great as well. A couple hours on Sunday. We'll be hanging out off the mats as well, eating dinners and socializing. And I don't know if we'll record a podcast in front of an audience or not. That's not off the table. It might be a little tricky, but we'll try. We might try. I don't know that we'll try. We might try if that's able to be done. And I don't know. We're going to have a great time that weekend, guys.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. For the audience, I think most of you know, but maybe you don't. Gary and Byron trained together, been friends for years, and but the three of us have not met. So I'm looking forward to coming up and rolling with you guys and meeting everybody up there in Wichita. Byron, I don't know if we've talked about it, but do the people coming need to bring a gi, two gis, a couple of rash guards, and some fight shorts? Is this going to be mostly gi, no gi, or a little of both?
Okay, that's a good question, Joe, and we need to start talking about that more often. I would say on June 22nd, the open mat, whatever you want to do. If you're bringing two gis, that'd be a great day to wear one of them. But if you want to roll no gi, it's easy for me to take my gi top off, and Gary prefers no gi, but I guarantee you Gary will roll with you no matter what you're wearing, as long as it's not the Speedo. He's not a fan of the Speedo. On most people.
Only I can wear the Speedo.
You're cramping his style because he wants to be the only one that has it. No, June 23rd.
I've got a nice set of bad boy shorts I might bring.
Nice. He's got the bad girl shorts.
The old school.
No, but on the 23rd, that'll probably be a gi day. I don't know for sure, but I think both Tim and Rolly will be showing techniques that are mostly gi involved. So I would say you need to probably bring at least one gi. If you bring a second gi, we'll work with that. On the 24th, the stuff I tend to teach and talk about, it really doesn't matter. That's kind of one of my whole things is the things I do no gi have to work in the gi, and the things I do with the gi training, I want them to also work without the gi. It does limit what I'm working on sometimes, but I don't know for sure. If you want to wear a gi that day, that'd be cool. If not, we're happy to have you any of those days, gi or no gi. But if you can bring a couple of them, that's great. If you could bring one, I think you'll be perfectly fine on the 23rd to wear that. That's when I would recommend it. But we'll have a great time no matter what happens.
Yeah, and make sure you bring a tuxedo because we're going to have an awards night. It's going to be elegant and fancy, so definitely make sure you do that.
Yeah, Gary's in charge of that part.
And you should bring a tuxedo in the color of your belt. So we should either have a white tuxedo, a blue one, a purple one, brown, or black one.
Wow.
Can't we just have a cummerbund? Isn't that the thing that goes around your waist? And
yeah, that's a good idea.
A cummerbund, that's funny.
Yeah, a cummerbund.
A right bow tie.
There you go. We got all kinds of ideas that are happening, and some of them will probably not happen.
Yeah, Joe, you could probably make money with that. Ranked bow ties and sell those.
They're coming back. You know what would be cool is a tie that had like the bar and the color of the tie. That'd be kind of neat. I mean, I've seen the belts,
actually,
like dress belts that are.
I think those are great ideas, Byron. I really think people would buy those. I would wear one to work.
There you go.
Yeah,
I would not, because I don't wear that sort of thing at work.
I don't think it'd be too good when you're rescuing people and putting out fires to have an extra piece of clothing hanging around.
Yeah, nothing extra hanging out for me. Thank you, Gary.
Well, we know there's nothing extra.
Well, you know, we're kind of wrapping things up on the show here, and we always like to have a little bit of bonus fun. And typically, a lot of times we do this in the form of improv audiobook, where I'll throw a title at some guys, Gary and Joe, and see what they come up with for content. And they kind of hinted at a good one, so we'll go with that. Aging on the mat, tips and tricks from two of the best-looking older grapplers, Joe and Gary, sharing their wisdom from on the mats, really helping the older people get away with more shenanigans, maybe, or just better technique. Typically, your books aren't that helpful, but they're full of clever ideas.
Oh, this one's definitely helpful. Wouldn't you say so, Joe?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they say, what do they say? That enthusiasm is wasted on the youth or something like that. And Gary and I are figuring out ways to be more enthusiastic, even though we're older. And Gary told me recently that he bought a bottle of C4 pre-workout, and I think it's supposed to last 2 months, 3 months. And Gary went through it in a week, but he said he got more submissions that week than ever before. How was that experience, Gary?
You know, it was great. The only problem was my heart rate and my blood pressure was way up, and my doctor wasn't too happy about that. But, you know, the great thing is, like, you know, my submissions went way up, and that's the most important thing. But not only submissions do me and Joe talk about in this book, we talk about escapes. And, you know, first of all, we're a little bit older grapplers, and these are tips, you know, for older grapplers to be more enthusiastic, to look better. You know, we don't really care so much about rolling because all that'll come with, you know, being enthusiastic and looking better. But one thing we've noticed that has really helped our escapes is, first of all, you want really good skin. As we get older, our skin dries out. It starts chafing. You know, if we have any nicks or cuts, that can lead to infections. And when we're older, an infection can be, you know, worse than when you're younger. So what we do is right before we step on the mat, especially no-gi. This works really great in no-gi. We really lather on, you know, all over our arms, our neck, forehead, ears, legs. We put on 3 or 4 gallons of lotion. And I tell you, I can get out of just about anything on those days.
Yeah, that really is a good trick. And, you know, if you're like in a condition type hair products are a good idea too. Sometimes I put in a bunch of hair products that I know when I start sweating, it's just going to get slick and greasy and run down my neck. And I tell you, I haven't been choked in a long time since I've been using that technique.
Yeah, and one of the things that happens to us is, Joe's talking about hair products, a lot of us older grapplers don't have hair. So what we do also that works really well is we put toupees on. And the great thing is, when somebody's squeezing our head and trying to choke us, a lot of times that toupee will fall off. And the guy will stop because he actually thinks he ripped part of our head off.
How many pays?
And while he's... toupees.
2 of them.
Two of them. No, but yeah, a lot of times we wear 2 toupees because it'll get you out of 2 different submissions. So, you know, it's always good to have a toupee or 2 on hand. But yeah, so that's another.
You know what else, Gary?
What's that?
When I'm struggling to catch my breath, you know, I'm getting a little winded, I spit my teeth out. You know,
you know, we don't use mouth guards. We use gum guards, but they work great.
Wow.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just a bunch of great tips. You know, another thing we use a lot, we call it the secret choke. And most people can't see it coming because what we use is we use that like 15-foot long hair that grows out of our ear. And when we got back mount on you, we just use that and we wrap it around and we tighten it up pretty tight. and nobody sees what we're doing. But it's they don't know where the choke came from. But the ear hair works great for that.
Wow. I have a new perspective when I'm rolling with you guys.
Yep.
But that book will be out shortly as soon as they decide to start making it. Add a few weeks to that time, and it'll be done. And one of the ways you'll find out that the book is done is it'll be on our social media outlets. Facebook, Joe has really taken off, and as far as put a lot of interesting things on our Facebook page. Sometimes he'll tell a story from his life. Sometimes he'll just share a funny picture. He's doing great with that. Gary and I are also.
Well, let's go back to that. I really love the guard passing drill that Joe put on the other day. That guy had a heck of a guard trying to pass that one.
Have you been working on that?
I have, but I sprained my neck within the first minute.
Oh, to be a young man again.
Yes.
that is not part of the older grappler's guide.
Just another reason to follow us on Facebook. Check out our YouTube channel. We're always putting new stuff and product reviews on YouTube. And we do have a BJJ Brick app. If somebody is new to podcasting, I think podcasting has grown a lot in the last several years, but still like half the people in the country, world, whatever, don't even know what podcasts really are. You just download the app and play it from there. It's super easy. So that's one way you could introduce it, because everybody knows how to download an app. So just tell them, hey, the app. Gary, I help you download apps.
I actually had to have my son download it for me.
There you go. Well, it got done, which, like with grappling, you find a way to get things done, and that's what you did. Next week, guys, it'll be the last episode of the month. Man, this month has gone by quickly, but the good news is the last week is always going to be a fun one. We have a topic episode. We'll be talking about playing a tight or a loose playing style on the mat. Do you play a real tight game or a loose game, or do you change it? One of the good times to play one versus the other, and different benefits or negative things that happen when you're doing that sort of thing. There's definitely room for both, and they're definitely both learning tools and will help you grow your jiu-jitsu. It's not just play a tight style all the time, or play super loose and kind of crazy all the time. There's definitely room for both, and we'll discuss the benefits and the negatives of both of them. And I think this will be a great episode to learn about jiu-jitsu and developing our games.
Like you said, Byron, a lot of times you'll be tight, sometimes you'll be loose. You'll change it up. And, in Byron's college days, he was really loose, but he's changed a lot here lately.
Yep, my game has changed. Gary, thank you for noting that. But as always, stay.
You're saying Byron had a reputation, huh?
More than just my reputation. More than just my jiu-jitsu, Gary and Joe. But always stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better. We'll see you on the mats, guys.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJ Brick Podcast. Today we have episode 239, and we have a special guest, Chris Martin, on the show today. I'm here.
Was that funny, Gary?
I haven't done this in so long. I forgot what the heck I was doing. Oh, man. Sorry about
You're
that.
off to a good start.
Let's start this over again.
Okay.
Hey guys, Joe coming to you from Texas. Things are good down here, and I'm looking forward to this episode. It's all fun and games on the BJJ, on the beat. Gary, whatever you got, I think it's contagious.
Yeah, a lot of times people do say when they're rolling with me, it's contagious.
Okay, I'll give it another go.
Hello. I'm going to just talk. I hear somebody tapping the microphone. Oh, he's gone.
That's me. I lost my microphone cover.
So here's a funny, I don't know what the heck, the story. Last year, I think in the fall or maybe the spring, when it was nice outside, I lived fairly close to my parents. And we lived fairly close to a Panera, the little deli or bread place, whatever. And so we text them, hey, we're going to walk to Panera. You guys want to come for dinner? And they said, yeah. So we walk. It's a half mile. It's pretty nice. We get there. We order our food. And they call, Byron, your food's ready. And I go get it. And then they call Robert, your food's ready. He gets it. And then I go, hey, the next person that gets their food, we'll know their name. We could just say hi to them. And it would probably blow their mind. And my dad's like, I'm going to do that. And so
your dad's just like you.
He's ornery. But so they call the guy, Tom, your food is ready. And this guy, about my dad's age, walks by us, gets his food, comes back. My dad goes, hi, Tom. And the guy goes, hi, Robert. And he just kept on walking. I'm like, what the heck just happened? It's like they used to work together.
Crazy.
They used to work together, and he obviously didn't tell me that.
So he met. They
knew each other. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I was like, man, my mind was blown. What is happening?
That is a good one.
Yeah, he got me pretty good there.
I like that one.
And we could have sat there for an hour and that wouldn't have been able to happen. But it just was like the next guy, he happened to know that guy, and it worked out perfect.
He's lucky that it was the next guy, that somehow they didn't skip orders because somebody only ordered a bowl of soup.
I don't know what's up with Joe here. I mean, just try calling him. I guess we should check our phones.